And thank you very much. I'll leave the papers with you, and the paper which will be published today, I'll give you a privileged preprint to the uh,
Thank you. Thank
to the
you so
president.
very much. এই পর্যায়ে আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি আমাদের পররাষ্ট্র মন্ত্রণালয়ের ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ট্রেড অ্যান্ড ইনভেস্টমেন্ট অ্যান্ড টেকনোলজি উইং এর মহাপরিচালক ডক্টর সৈয়দ মুনতাসির মামুন সাহেবের কাছে। প্রতিবেদনে জিও ইকোনমিক আনসার্টেনিটি ও এক্সটার্নাল মার্কেট প্রেশার এর বিষয়টি উঠে এসেছে। বর্তমান বৈশ্বিক বাণিজ্য বাস্তবতায় বাংলাদেশের কম্পিটিটিভনেস ধরে রাখতে কোন সেক্টরাল ডিপ্লোমেসি সবচেয়ে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বলে আপনি মনে করেন?
There is a short answer and there is a long answer. Short answer is, of course, give finance and equity, people will grow. End of story. Give people money, people will do business, government will become a tree and help you all. But before I begin, I must congratulate Dhaka Chamber again and again. We have been working with Dhaka Chamber for many years. I have worked with many of your illustrious predecessors, and I'm glad that I'm working with you. So I'm probably one of your reflection points in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I believe that in many of the interministerial meetings, Dhaka Chamber and Foreign Ministry positions, thanks to me, of course, are similar, more similar than the Minister of Foreign Affairs and other ministries. So, in general, we become the public enemy by default in any of the interministerial meetings that we go. But today, I believe that I have heard some of the most fascinating comments about your program. See, since the last time that you had presented the methodology, Dr. Asad did a fantastic job over there. I must congratulate you through him.
Thank you.
And that this EPI index gave me food for thought. Most of the people know me that I spend my time other than working for a very boring government job in thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, and artificial intelligence. But because of this paper, I started extending your ideas into EPIs, EVIs, and then SHIF and other cohemic validation measures. So there's a couple of things that that came to my mind. And as I was listening, I have gone rather vastly away from what I was thinking of speaking. আপনারা সম্ভবত সবাই একটা 4 পেজ ছোট ইনফরমেশন নোট পেয়েছেন. There is a summary of what I wanted to say of 3 papers, volume 4, 5, and 6. First is, of course, a methodological annihilation of the methodology of DCCI. Joking, it's a good methodology. I believe that, of course, there is a scope for correction, but it accentuates both the vulnerabilities and the opportunities because of the geometric mean and other measures. So that in itself, although it is far from perfect, no one is perfect, but it captures the sentiment, the real sentiment in terms of money, in terms of business, in terms of enterprise. That's very important. Government actually deals with boring people, boring data, and most of the times obsolete ideas, which is absolutely wrong. When I come to this chamber, I see that this chamber is, of course, dominated by the godfathers of this economy, but it also speaks of the SME. This is the only chamber where SMEs are basically reflected, represented. And see, my family has been involved with your chamber for more than 7 decades now, 6 decades. And I've never seen that Dhaka chamber has spoken, ivory tower thoughts. It has always spoken for the people, small people. And small people are কথা কিন্তু কেউ বলে না. That's the very interesting part. Many of us, most of us come from small peoples, and when we go into different meetings, we forget them. কৃষি সেক্টরের কথা কেউ বলে না, ধোলাইখালের বিজনেসম্যানরা কি করে বলে না। ইনফ্যাক্ট সামওয়ান ওয়াজ টেলিং মি ধোলাইখালে সেকেন্ড হ্যান্ড জিনিস পাওয়া যায়। Yeah, fine. Dholaikali, you can get jet engines. Dholaikali, you can get spectrometers, which I use for my one quantum mechanics measurements. Dholaikali অনেক কিছু পাওয়া যায়. But have you ever thought of actually elevating Dholaikali? That's a different issue. First, there I work with an interesting concept called the Oxford Vantage Point of TMO, technology, markets, and organizations. Connect these three. What we see as a government servant, I started with private equity, then moved into government servants. I see that there's a serious disconnect between technology as it is emerging, the markets as they are flourishing, and the organizational architectures that we're having. Other than probably the TIS chamber and probably partly BIDA and somewhere else, we don't see this enterprise reflected anywhere. The organizations getting reflected anywhere. As a result, what has happened is people have, I mean, I'm not saying about everyone, most of us have one question. টাকা পাবো কোথায়? এটা করবো কেমনে? ওটা করবো কেমনে? টাকা কে কোথায় কিভাবে পায়? How do people get money at all? How did Japan get money? And for God's sake, it doesn't have anything. not even agricultural land. 7% of its land is arable. So how did Japan become an advanced economy? For 400 years. It beat the Russian economy, uh, the Navy, black and blue in 1905. With what? That's initiative. That's enterprise. What Bangladesh has is more than enough. We have people. When I go into negotiations with foreigners, I don't ask for money at all. There's where the BIDA and we differ. BIDA wants money. Give us money, please. FDI. I say, don't bring any money at all. Bring the person. Bring the businessman. I'll take you to Dhaka Chamber President. He'll give an underwriting. We'll take you to IPO. Maybe do an ICO to bypass the Financial Institutions Division. Say ICO, you can do anything. But yeah, just bring the enterprise, bring the business, bring the people who actually do business. Then see where money comes from. Money can be created. Money is not really a problem. One of our presidents said this, that money is not a problem. It's actually true. Fiat money, the currency, is maybe 100 and eh, what 850% times over less than what your asset value is. Price, wealth এবং ভ্যালু তিনটা আলাদা কনসেপ্ট। মানি ইজ জাস্ট এ টোকেন। মানি যদি টোকেন নাই হইতো তাহলে নোবডি উড হ্যাভ পারচেজ বিটকয়েন্স। বিটকয়েন্সে তো কোনো গ্যারান্টারও নাই, and it's already 141, and it's going to be that 61 69 এ আছে, but Wall Street will take it to 141 based on what? It doesn't have any backing. In fact, it might cease to exist tomorrow. So these DLTs, the distributed ledger systems, these if this can capture money, when let's say in this room, just in this room, how much money do we have? I believe that there's no NBR guy here because then they will start taxing. But other than that, in this point, I calculated one thing, that from my ministry to the Motijil chamber, I think we have more than 50 to 60,000 crore worth of assets deployed. Now that assets, is it money? That's value. Now from that value, are we deriving income? You have money, you have assets. Do you have wealth? What is the difference between an asset and a wealth? I was hearing about the July 2022, the when we had started a dramatic shift. So I'm someone who is prone to giving dissent notes. I had given 4 critical dissent notes, which almost forced the finance division to issue 4 SROs, bypassing those dissent notes. But in July, something else happened. We actually had a massive break, particularly with regards to what was happening. There was a governance issue, of course, and then there were international financial institutions pressures, which forced the government's hands down. Why is Bangladesh not growing? I humbly disagree. I was very listening very intently to what our chief economist from Bangladesh Bank was saying, but I humbly disagree. Bangladesh cannot be held back to a low-level equilibrium trap of 4 to 6%. We can and we ought to grow at 12 to 16%. And see, I'm not a crazy person. 25 years before, I was making a presentation here, exactly not in this room, with my former professor, Dr. Shamsul Haq, and we're making presentations that okay, we can grow much faster. What if we can start selling off the KPIs? যমুনা সেতুকে বিক্রি করে দিই, পদ্মা সেতুকে বিক্রি করে দিই. We start selling off everything, but get the money and start growing. Well, it definitely happened, but still it's far from being connected to the markets. What we see is that our capital markets is not there. So আমরা এখনো বলছি যে ব্যাংককে ফাইন্যান্স করতে হবে, ব্যাংককে ফাইন্যান্স করতে হবে. See, microcredit and microfinance are two different things. Bank financing for industrial projects is suboptimal. We should go into the capital markets, and the capital market is ready. গত 54 বছর ধরে বাংলাদেশের ক্যাপিটাল মার্কেটে ওই ওই 10টা কোম্পানির শেয়ারই কেনাবেচা হতে থাকে. What if we bring Boeing to Bangladesh markets? What if we bring Embraer to Bangladesh markets? Will it not be subscribed? It will be 500 times more subscribed than what this IPO value is. How come we don't speak about it? One of the reasons that we don't speak about is that we don't speak fuzzy numbers. We always go for binary numbers where you have lost data because you are 0 or 1, 0 or 1. But there's no 0 or 1. There are 50 shades of gray and maybe 500,000 shades of blue. What about the fuzzy numbers? The 0 and 1, in between these two extremes, what we have? 0.25, 0.35, and what if we bring the imaginary numbers? Then we have the whole world in us, in our mind. The issue is our mind ready to do it? What I see is that we are topologically constrained. And that's where, see, there are 3 papers here, and I'll give the one final paper. We have 7 volumes of paper published on your EPI in Oxford Analytica. So, but what happens is there we have published your papers, extended them, and we have gone through the EVI, Economic Volatility Index. That what if EPI could actually show EVI? Because over the next 18 to 36 months, maybe 60 months, the whole world economy will go through shifts, cataclysmic shifts. It's not only risks, it's also opportunities, but it's upheavals, ups and downs, ups and downs. You cannot blame anyone. The question is, can you manage? Can you ride the wave? And that's where the diplomatic toolkits come in. My idea, or let's say our idea is, see, if you look at the second page, you'll see that extension of EPI into an EVI. You'll see that there's a topological observation that we bring category theory and shift theory. It's an old theory, of course, information geometry, but we bring that in so that you understand the Hurst component, that you see the fluid dynamics, just like water, how water flows, how a river flows. You bring that into the economy, and then you do a dual core integration, that you create a core of equity and subdivide it, or let's say enhance it with financial instruments. And the last part is, what do you do with it? So I say the question was, what is the economic diplomacy area that you'd like to focus on? I'd like to focus on, if you look at the third page and the fourth page, there is a couple of things. I want you to have a look at it when you have time. I know that you're all very busy, but if you could just spare 15 minutes of your time, those papers are there, of course, but more than the papers, you have the summary over there. We bring first principle forecasting. For frequency and timeliness, we bring Bayesian hierarchical updating. For measurement, we bring posterior predictive distributions. That's a note for Asad. Scope for shift theoretic consistency. Handling voids and risks, which we have deeply. We have institutional voids, and we try to avoid that void by leveraging on our capital asset portfolios, complementary asset portfolios, and also minimum viable innovation engines. And for the diplomatic utility, Minister of Foreign Affairs is almost nowhere in your planning. Please bring us in. Multiplicative resilience via riding the wave. Ride the wave, whatever the wave comes in. So when this Iran issue started happening, since we were dissenters always, so we gave a very different paper to the foreign secretary, that this wave will be like this. We had been modeling on the hypersonic movements, and also we had been modeling on the movement of the prices, the essentials, the fuel, food, fuel, finance, and how things might move. So our idea was, even in terms of negotiations with different chapters, see, agriculture is more important. Nobody speaks about agriculture. Agriculture is as if it is given, but agriculture sustains the whole core. Whatever that we have in this room is based on the fact that we can get rice on the field, that we can, the rice is 32 or 30, 40 taka per kilo, and that's how we survive. If tomorrow we take off the entire, not so privileged persons from the street, Dhaka city rice prices will go to 400 taka, because you don't have any option. It will be claustrophobic. The issue is, how do we integrate all these things? We accept our vulnerability, we accept the fragility, and ensure that we grow, just like Two Face in Batman. So, key takeaways and policy implications: we use EPI as functional diagnostics. We bring the dual core finance as resilience engine. We bring EVI evolution to bring the volatility in so that we can ride the wave and also get up from the trough. And we bring some sort of a base of pyramid diplomacy reimagined, because this is where the compute will come. When I speak to the UN, I see that only 13 to 15 countries have solid speaking slots for AI. But when we write about AI, maybe they accept our writings, but they just ask one question: what is their use case? We don't have any use case, for God's sake. Until and unless if you bring in investment, if you infuse capital into your productive sector, if you don't infuse capital in R&D, you will not make a breakthrough. But the moment that you make a breakthrough, the growth is unimaginably higher. Just bring it in, have a lab, and immediate actions, institutionalize this, because we believe that EPI is actually giving better results than many of the analog and other things. For last 7 months, the last time that I was here, I think I made my points here as well, and the mood has considerably shifted. And over last 7 8 months, we have seen how the EPI is working really well to give us an indication. And trust me, your points are very well taken in the Ministry of
Thank you.
Foreign Affairs. And thank you very much. I'll leave the papers with you, and the paper which will be published today, I'll give you a privileged preprint to the
Thank you.
to
Thank
the
you
president.
so very much. It's a distinguished pleasure and honor to have been getting your support from MOFA for Dhaka Chamber, and probably আমাদেরকে আলাদা একটা sectoral বসতে হবে আপনার সাথে to better understand and correlate EPI and EBI together. So we want a joint success on this issue.
I want to make a one small last request. On 13th of June, we're going to have a trade and investment conference with the president and with Dhaka Chamber in the lead. We want all of you to participate.
Thank you.
Come and
Thank you very much. Acha, before going on